are now tuned into Almost 30 podcast.
Welcome to the show. We're glad you're here or grateful you're here. This is Lindsay Simsick.
This is Krista Williams. And you're listening to a podcast and conversation I did with Kimberly Snyder, who is a New York Times bestselling author, on the hidden power of the 5 hearts. Empower your thoughts, balance your emotions, and unlock vibrant health and abundance. This is a book that we talked about a few months ago, and where I think sometimes in our space, you can kind of overlook the heart because it almost feels like the heart can get in the way, or the heart isn't as strong or powerful as the mind, or even as like our psychic centers or our voice. The heart was something I wanted to explore more because I know the happiest moments in my life and the moments that felt like they had the most peace and coherence and even the most power I've had of in my life of manifestation, of alignment, has been when I'm in my heart. So I think demystifying the heart space from a spiritual perspective, from a scientific perspective, was a conversation that I really wanted to have for myself and even for our audience. So I'm excited that we get to unpack it with her today.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, there have been so many moments in my life where I truly know what it feels like to be in my heart. And it's like, it's usually, it brings me to happy tears. It's usually just like this. It almost reminds me of when we first did ayahuasca, and like I kind of experienced that feeling of just the like omnipresence of God, and it's such a God moment for me when I like really feel in my heart. And I think as I've gotten more aware of what that feels like, I also know what it feels like not to be in my heart. So when it feels a little like rigid or closed, I get bumped. I know how to get there, but it's also like, what closed that? Just getting curious kind of about that that mechanism of like closing and opening and softening. And yeah, it's so powerful.
I think a lot of people want to receive love in their life and want to feel that feeling of being accepted and taken care of and safe. And I think that happens so much with the heart. And I know there's a lot of science coming out about the power of the heart, and especially when you have that brain-heart coherence, which is a lot of Joe Dispenza's work, when you can sort of connect the vibrational field of your brain and your head, so the energetic frequency of the mind with the energetic frequency of the heart. And that's when you can just have this really beautiful experience of feeling incredibly embodied and empowered, and oftentimes magnetizing love in a different way than ever before. And so she, in her book, really wanted to go a lot into the science of the power of what it means to be in your heart. She walks us through a meditation that you can do in your heart, and really the meaning of what it means to be in your heart. Because I think a lot of people want to know and understand what it means to feel and be in the heart, and maybe haven't ever. So her explanation of it just really allows us to understand it in a way to empower ourselves.
I wanted to also shout out, she came out with a children's book with her husband
Yes.
a while back that Mav was obsessed with. It's called Chilla Gorilla and Lanky Lemur, Journey to the Heart.
Dude, I love that.
And it's a really beautiful book about, kind of coming out of your mind and just kind of how busy and anxious and active your mind can be, and how we can really find that calm place in our hearts. And it's so cool. Like, just Mav is almost 2.5. We've been reading the book for a couple months, like every night. And at that age, they're just spongy. And sometimes when I'm reading to him, I'll like leave a blank space for him to finish a sentence or whatever, because I know we've been reading it. And there's a mantra in the book that she repeats over and over. Feelings come and go, but in your heart is a calm place where peace and love can grow. And he knows the mantra. I was literally like, you're listening? Like,
Wow.
this is crazy. Obviously, I don't think he understands the true like meaning yet, but like, it is just such a wild thing to think about teaching about the heart early on to our children, how they can access that. Like, it's just like
It's wild.
It's a sweet thing that she's
I think also too
exploring.
to learn from a young age that you are not your feelings. Because I remember my high school years just being torture, because I was like, I am this feeling in this now moment, and this represents me. And having that deep attachment just makes you feel so overcome and lost in life. And to really go into the depths of the piece of the heart. And I think people also have the assumption that the heart is like very emotional, but the heart actually isn't very emotional. The heart is very steady and sure and clear. And I think our interpretation and the stories we make up in our minds is what makes it feel like it's emotional, where you can have beauty of crying and tears because you feel so much heart energy, but it's oftentimes not as wavering as I think people think.
Yeah.
And man, what a gift to have that book. What was ours? It was like one fish, two fish. We were like, one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish.
I mean, don't get me
That
wrong.
was my
We
mantra.
read some dumb books, but like there's just, she and her husband did a great job.
Yeah, her husband, John, who's such a riot and so much fun. And Kim has, I think, 2 other episodes on Almost 30 over the years. She's had some really beautiful books. You can search Kim Almost 30 if you're a fan of hers. I've also been on her show. We've also been on her show before. So you can search Almost 30 and then her show and see the episodes there.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kim, for joining us. All right, we'll let you jump into this episode and we will see you on the other side.
What's funny is, Lord Ganesha in Hinduism and in yoga, they say he destroys obstacles, but he also is said to place obstacles in your path if you're going in the wrong direction to steer you back.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So when you pray to him, he does both.
When you pray to him to, align with your, I say like align me with my heart and my highest purpose and my greatest fulfillment, he can blast away obstacles. But sometimes if the mind is interfering and we're sort of going down a pathway that isn't totally aligned, he can place obstacles in that path. So sometimes, when something happens, you're like, oh, crap. It turns out to be a blessing.
Oh, for sure.
Like breaking up with my ex.
Yeah. I know that. I was thinking about that too. Just like people know you and they know you so well, but they might know you in this version or like maybe a previous version, but I don't think people know how much of an evolution your path has been on.
Oh gosh, Krista, it's unbelievable. I'm getting goosebumps when you said that.
Yeah.
If there's one thing I'm so grateful for, it really feels like I've lived at least 5 lifetimes in this lifetime. There was this, there was the overachiever, if we go back, like the straight A student, the, on in every way. And then it went the complete opposite direction in backpacking for 3 years, where I sort of just, like my mind and my ideas, that's where my philosophy came from. And then I came back to New York, or I came to New York and started my free blog and was teaching yoga. I was running around all around the city. And it just really flowed. Somehow my first celebrity found me, Uma Thurman, got on a film set. I started working with celebrities. I moved out here because I was working with them. Book deals came. I was doing TV shows. So that was a whole phase. And then there was, getting a farm and family phase.
Yeah. You're like rewilding.
It's pretty wild. We went to New York a few weeks ago and I took my kids to the apartment in New York where I lived. And it was on the ground floor in the West Village. And it was so trippy because I remember that time being in New York and not even thinking about having kids. And it was just this like amazingness. I was so in my friend and, yogic community and everything was so new and it was growing. And it just reminded me that we go into these phases in life. And now I'm so into being a mom and our farm in Hawaii and growing things. And, we were talking about this ordinariness of just being in the dirt and it's extraordinary in the ordinary. And wow, there's phases upon phases. But the through line, which we'll talk about, is, I believe, the awakening of our heart connection. That is what steers us through all these phases.
For any woman that's listening right now, because so many women in our audience are in a phase of deep transition.
Yes.
And they don't really know where they're going. They don't really know where the path will lead them. And maybe they feel unsure or scared. What would you say to them?
So when I'm talking about the heart, and we can get into this, there's this clarity that comes when we're not in the confused mind. So when I'm talking about opening the heart, it's also the journey to more authenticity. So when there's, fear, jealousy, anger, there's all these emotions that we go through and they can start to get even more exacerbated when we're in the mind, we're trying to suppress, we're trying to pretend they're not there. And so then we get confused, or then we can stay in relationships too long, or we can settle, or we can start to be tactical, or force things. But the more we start to drop down into this, I would say like authentic power, this quiet, it's what the yogis have talked about. It's what all major religions have talked about with the heart's power, the sacred heart of Jesus Christ. And then you think about the Egyptians talking about the heart and all the science of heart coherence, which I've been studying for the past few years. You realize there's this different way of being that's very centered. There's been points, Krista, where I've been like, really up and really exuberant, and then felt like I shouldn't have these feelings, and you try to turn away. But being authentic and feeling good, which is, the name of my podcast, so I talk about that a lot, is being really just connected to yourself in that moment, and connected to what does my body need to eat, and what do I really feel about this relationship, or do I really want to say yes to this dinner? And so that becomes more of the navigating force.
Yeah, I've been thinking about authenticity a bit because I think, people can describe me however, but I think one of the through lines that I get is that I'm authentic. And I've been thinking about that a lot because I'm like, what would that mean, and what creates that situation? And I was thinking about that in my own way, and I was like, I think it's a congruency between what you're thinking, feeling, and saying. It's like, it's all what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling is in congruence to what I'm saying and speaking. And you have this experience of being with someone where it feels like it's all aligning, and it feels really natural, and it feels like there's no front.
Yes.
I think that's where I felt like I'm also the most connected to my heart. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was, I think in the spiritual space right now, there's such a hunger for creation, doing, manifestation, thinking, etc. And I don't know if people really understand the value of the heart. It kind of seems like, heart, like, what's that going to get me?
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
So it is this striving ahead, right?
Yeah.
This like manifesting, let me get this. And just like you were saying earlier, where authenticity is where we're not wearing masks.
Yep.
And I think part of that is also just being really present to what is. And there's this incredible power that comes from this heart connection, which isn't woo-woo. And it's not just like, like this overly emotional. The heart is actually another brain. So all this research, I started to take a really deep dive a couple of years ago. It was like one research study I came across when I was writing You Are More Than You Think You Are, now 3 books ago. And then I was sitting in the forest and I was reading The Holy Science by Swami Sri Yukteswar. And he talked about these 5 stages of the heart. It's always like when something really strikes me, and then I start to dive deep, 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 deep. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to share this. So these 5 stages, the first is the dark heart. So that's when we're in fear, we're totally disconnected. That's when we're just, sitting on the couch or in these old patterns. And then the propelled heart is where that constant on that a lot of people can feel like looking at their TikTok account or scrolling or burnout or like what's the next level. And like you said, always manifesting. And so there's a pretty high level of incoherence, which is when your heart and your brain aren't speaking. So what's ironic is about this heart work, as you get really aligned between your heart, your brain, and your nervous system, there's science to it, there's spirituality to it, there's emotional intelligence to it. You start to have this centeredness, which means incredible levels of clarity and creativity and a type of magnetism. There's a field that comes from your heart. So there's less forcing and more of this easeful drawing in. There's more just like settled into I am authenticity, which is magnetic. And then it goes higher into the steady heart, which we can talk about more later, the devoted heart, which is very high frequencies of not just doing, but you care more about the kindness and the love in each moment, which ironically, you're in such high coherence, you can draw more in. And then finally, the clear heart, which seems really ordinary. We're talking about this ordinariness. And it was so funny, Chris, I was just in Hawaii reading the Tao, and there's so much just about the incredibleness of living a really ordinary life. And I think in our society, we're always trying to stand out and wear flashy makeup or do things on our Instagram account or say shocking things, whatever it is. Like we know the type of news that spreads, but actually it's finding this magic in the ordinary moments. So the clear heart is like a prism, like where the light comes through. And then, depending what you believe, universe, source, God, this higher heart energy is actually flowing through you. There's nothing added on top. It's like this real, rounded, clear, practical, but also like incredibly like just comfortable with your self-authenticity.
Okay, so lately I've been thinking a lot about how I want to support my body in this kind of like preconception mode, conception mode. And it's a season of life that I've been through before. I have one son. I'm just really intentional about what I'm putting in my body and how I am making sure I'm getting the nutrients that I need. So there's so much information out there and it can feel overwhelming trying to make the right choices when it comes to your prenatal. One thing I feel really good about is that in my first pregnancy, I took Ritual's Essential Prenatal. Even if you're just in a phase of preparing your body or being intentional about foundational nutrients, it feels like such a supportive place to start. Their clinically backed Essential Prenatal includes key nutrients like choline, folate, and omega-3. And I love that the ingredients are traceable and thoughtfully sourced. I and a lot of my friends chose Ritual because I really love and trust the level of research behind it. It's the only leading prenatal backed by its own human clinical trial, and it was clinically shown to deliver key nutrients like folate, biotin, and vitamin D. I also appreciate that it uses methylated folate and a patented capsule designed to dissolve in the small intestines, which I found makes it really gentle and easy to take. Especially, I remember that first trimester, it was kind of like a hard thing to wrap my head around that I had to take prenatals, but it made it a lot easier. So compared to other supplements I've tried, it's just been a better overall experience for me. So I highly recommend. Don't settle for less than evidence-based support. Save 25% on your first month of Ritual at ritual.com/almost30. That's ritual.com/almost30 for 25% off your first month. Okay, can we talk about aging for a second? I love to talk about this. I feel like in your 30s and 40s, you start noticing little things. Sleep isn't as deep, or energy isn't as consistent, maybe just some changes in your physical appearance, and you're like, wait, is this just how it goes right now? Healthy aging is something I care deeply, deeply about. I think ever since becoming a parent, I'm like, I want to feel as good as possible for as long as possible. And I've spent a lot of time trying to get ahead of it instead of reacting to it. That's why I am so excited about C15 from Fatty 15. It's the first emerging essential fatty acid to be discovered in more than 90 years. It was actually discovered by co-founder Dr. Stephanie Van Watson while working with the U.S. Navy to improve the health of older dolphins. That's right, dolphins, which is really incredible. Based on over 100 studies, we now know that C15 strengthens our cells and helps slow aging at the cellular level. This is what I'm interested in. Let's get to the cellular level of everything. When our cells don't have enough C15, they can become fragile and age faster, and as many as 1 in 3 people may have lower levels. So I've been taking Fatty 15 consistently, and I love that it feels like I'm supporting my long-term health in a foundational way. It's vegan-friendly, 100% pure C15, and even comes in a gorgeous reusable glass jar. Fatty 15 is on a mission to optimize your C15 levels to help support your long-term health and wellness, especially as you age. You can get an additional 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit by going to fatty15.com/almost30 and using the code almost30 at checkout. Again, that's fatty15.com/almost30. Use the code almost30 at checkout.
Do you think there's a relationship between that and the collective? Like, do you think the collective is at like a collective heart stage level? Because a lot of times, there's a coherence in our consciousness, or there's kind of like a conscious awakening that happens. And I'd be curious as like, if you were to think of Earth in a certain one of these heart stages, what would you think they were in?
So I think we're in a really interesting time where there's a lot of dark heart energy, right? There's the dark heart and the propeller. By the way, we can be in and out of a phase in a day. We can like have an old trigger or reaction that comes in, but we tend to be in one stage more at a certain period. And the practices and the research in the book is about how do you stay in the higher stages and what do you do to get out of a dark heart moment or a propelled heart moment. But to answer your question, I think we see a lot of separation and fragmentation. And then on the other end of the scale, we're seeing more and more people waking up.
Yeah.
And a lot of people saying, hold on, like this isn't really the life that I want, and I don't want to keep going this way, and this doesn't feel real to me, this doesn't feel right. So I think we're seeing this dichotomy, and I feel like it's coming together into more of what, again, back to authenticity. Because if you think about it, authenticity is sort of the melding of the light and the dark.
True.
It's not this like
It's a good
fakey, like I'm just, happy all the time,
Yeah.
or like the fake positivity, all that. It's just sort of saying, hey, I'm really struggling, but I'm learning. And that's really where I feel like I'm at. I'm like, you know what? Like, I have these old triggers, and I'm going to sit with myself and go into my heart coherence practices instead of project them out or channel it into my old pattern, which is like more doing, I'm not good enough, and sort of sit with that and grow. And it just creates so much more inner peace.
Can you break that down a little bit more slowly? Like, so what would you do if an old trigger comes up? So for anyone listening, they have an old trigger comes up. What is the old way of doing with that? And then what would be the best way to use the heart coherence to sort of work through that?
Yeah. So a lot of practices are battling the thoughts and the triggers from the mind, right? It's like, what's the number one thing people say about meditation? They sit and then the thoughts come in and they don't really meditate. They're just trying to fight their thoughts, or they're just spending a lot of time up there. So what's really powerful about this work is we're traveling that, few inches, but this powerful journey down into the heart. And what research published in the American Journal of Cardiology shows that look how naturally I touch my heart. You bring your awareness here. Just doing that, Krista, is the beginning of rewiring your nervous system. So if you're listening to this, you're driving in your car, or you're doing the dishes or walking your dog, you don't even have to put your hand on your heart. If you just place your awareness on your heart, that's how powerful we are. It starts to again, you're changing the input signal from your heart to your brain. Your heart actually sends more messages to your brain than vice versa.
Wow.
So we did a research study with the Heart Math Institute, which has been studying heart coherence for, I think, over 35 years now. And we took 30 participants. It was really fun doing a research study after reading thousands over the years. And we took them in the lab and we measured their heart coherence. Which is basically not just your HRV numbers, but it's the pattern. You can look at how jagged or how smooth your heart patterns are, simplified. And then we gave them this meditation track with these simple steps. And we just said, practice this 4 to 5 times a week. We had to trust they were going to do it, right? We don't know. I did a group once a week with the group. And then we came back, and in 4 weeks, their heart coherence, getting into coherent state, was increased on average 29%. Something almost 30% in a month.
Wow.
So what does heart coherence mean? It also has a lot of physical benefits. We live in a world where everybody's trying to do all these, and some of them are amazing, the red light, the biohacking, the cold plunges. But when we're coherent, we don't age as quickly because it means all your systems are more entrained. So there's more energy efficiency. When you're stressed, let's say you got a piece of bad news and you're like eating something for lunch. And you check your phone, it's like, what happens? Like, I know my stomach starts to hurt. So immediately the stress response comes. Cortisol is released. So energy's pulled out of your GI tract. You can get bloated. Your hormones get out of whack. Again, the cortisol goes up. DHEA plummets. So when you're coherent and you're able to move through, you just save so much more energy. And there's other research in the book around cortisol going down, DHEA going up 100%.
And DHEA is a precursor to hormones.
Yeah.
So it helps people. I actually took it for a while. I got my blood test. My hormones were kind of off. And what's nice about DHEA is that it supports your body in creating the hormone that it needs, not just putting in like a different hormone.
Exactly. Like it's, it could turn into
testosterone, estrogen,
different things.
progesterone.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
it's actually amazing.
It's, said to be one biomarker for vitality. So I got my blood work too done a couple months ago, and I don't, my husband's a big,
I know you getting blood work makes me happy.
So I did the blood work, and it was, they looked at my whole hormone profile because you want to look to make sure something's not overly high. Obviously, it's all balanced, but it was the DHEA of an 18 to 22-year-old woman.
Wow.
And so what's powerful about these practices, to go back to it, is you can change your hormones from these practices, which, again, our heart-aligned meditation is only 8 minutes. So it starts with focusing on your heart. And then you focus on your heart while you start to do a certain breath pattern. There's coherence breathing. And then you just do a couple steps. But I just want to emphasize how powerful we all are. You're not taking something. You don't need a device. You're not having to inject something. It's something that we can do. It just shows, again, when these ancient cultures from all around the world, everywhere, the Torah, the Quran, the word kalb is mentioned 132 times, which translates to heart, the Anahata chakra, all around the world, ancient spiritual traditions have always extolled the heart's power. So like you said, people in our world are like, well, what do I do to manifest?
Yeah.
Give me the peptides, or like all these things. And that can be great too. But it feels to me, and I know for myself, we're underutilizing this incredibly powerful tool, which we all have.
It was interesting. Last week I was in London and I was with a friend, and I had just gone up. I was in Florida the weekend before, and I flew from Florida to London, and my dad's really sick. So
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I was with my dad all weekend. So when I landed in London, my friend after the first day was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Like, she's like, "You don't feel like you're in your heart." And she's like, "You're normally so in your heart, and it's like very obvious that you're not in your heart." And it was so helpful because she was so right. And I couldn't put my finger on why I felt so off.
Yes.
And why I felt so, I was like floating everywhere. Like I was kind of disassociated, just wasn't really in touch with my body. I think it was the travel and just the trip. And I was like, wow, that was such a poignant way to explain how she was experiencing me, which is a good mirror. Like, because it was true. And sometimes people can be like, are you okay? Or what's wrong? Or you're kind of off or whatever. But it was like, that was actually what the experience was, is I was out of my heart because the feeling of if I dropped into my heart was too much, for that moment. Like it was a protective mechanism to kind of go up. And so it was really beautiful because the rest of the week then I had that focus of like being back in my heart and dropping back into my heart. And eventually, a day or so later, I felt so in my heart. I felt so great. And it was like just a perfect guide. And I think when you are in your heart or live in your heart, it's a somatic experience that you understand. But I would say, and I'm curious if you would say this, like, I don't know if people know or understand when they're in their heart or not.
Oh, I was going to say, a lot of people, first of all, they think they're in their heart, but they're in their head. And then they think these big emotions, like, let's say you're really triggered, or you're really angry, or you're really jealous. People are like, oh, it's my heart. But actually, big emotions are of the ego. When we're talking about this steady heart, it's very, very calm. It's like dropping a stone and then you get to the bottom of the lake and there's just this clarity. So when you're in your heart and you're more coherent, it actually, the research shows it changes your perceptions. So suddenly, let's say you're incoherent, right? And there's the jagged patterns and you're in the thoughts.
Yeah.
And then the thoughts are going and you kind of look at a situation and you're like, she sucks. Like, she did this to me. But then when you're really clear in your heart, you're like, hold on here. It's very practical. Well, maybe the way I said that, did this. And then maybe, she was looking at this and maybe I overread that. So there's this, it's just, I say practical because you cut through so much drama. And this embodiment, which people are talking about, like when you're really in your heart's energy and awareness, you're really embodied versus, this, the ideas, woke, but you're not really living these teachings, which sound really good, but you're not really in it, not perfect. Again, back to the authenticity, but you're not like really even being connected to yourself. So for me, when I started to get into the research and the spiritual teachings, it was both working in tandem. So in the Hidden Power of the Five Hearts, there's a section on each heart stage and there's science, there's practices, and then there's spiritual teachings. So when I started doing it, I did measure my heart coherence, and it was amazing to see the changes. And now I don't measure it, to be honest, because I can feel and know when I'm off. But we were saying earlier, or before we got on, this is my 8th book, and they've all had science, but this one is where I went, practical science, not crazy. I actually cut 10,000 words of science before we published the book. But it's so interesting to see, there's over 500 research papers published on the heart and heart coherence. And again, most people don't know about this. I've been working in wellness now for well over a decade. I'm like, why don't more people know about this? Because again, it's free, it's easy, and it just feels so good to be here. So again, back to your, very long answer to your question, when I get triggered or something happens, I say, instead of, trying to do all the practices of like talking back to myself or what's really going on here, I drop into my heart. I forget everything. I do the heart aligned meditation, or there's another practice called the heart aligned steady in life. And when I'm more in my heart, then I respond, or then I see. And sometimes some of these practices are only 10 seconds, 2 minutes.
Okay, a few years ago, I learned something that changed my entire kitchen, and I need you to know about this if you don't know already. Most nonstick cookware still contains forever chemicals like PFAS. So these are the things that will not leave your body, which can leach into your food and your home. Even some air fryers and utensils contain them. And once I knew that, I was like, no, we're upgrading. That's why I switched to Our Place. Their cookware is completely toxin-free, no PFAS, no Teflon, but the performance is unreal. The nonstick is so good. Eggs just glide out and it's ridiculously easy to clean. That's one of my non-negotiables when it comes to cookware. I have the 4-piece cookware set, 2 always pans and 2 perfect pots. It's a great set. This covers almost everything and it replaces a whole stack of like bulky pans I used to have. You can sear, saute, steam, bake, boil, everything. And buying the full set saves you, I think, like $150. Plus, they all match in those gorgeous colors. You can have these on your stovetop just to display. And people will be like, wait, what are those? Those are beautiful. I also have the Dream Cooker, which is phenomenal. It's a pressure cooker. It's a slow cooker. You can sear in there. It is phenomenal. Highly recommend. I make my famous coconut bone broth rice in there. And then I also just got the Wonder Oven. Yes, this is an air fryer. It's an oven. You can dehydrate things in there. It is an all-in-one and it's non-toxic. Our Place is incredible. Stop cooking with toxic cookware and upgrade to Our Place today. Visit FromOurPlace.com/almost30 and use the code almost30 for 10% off site-wide with a 100-day risk-free trial, free shipping and returns. You can experience this game-changing cookware with 0 risk. Again, that is FromOurPlace.com/almost30. Use code almost30 for 10% off site-wide. Okay, so I have to share something that has been such a game changer for my mornings especially. Paleo Valley's bone broth protein. I love it in chocolate. I share about it all the time. This is replacing my coffee in the morning. It's just so nourishing, so yummy. If you're like me and you care about gut health, skin, hair, joints, but you also want something that's really clean and easy, this is it. It's made from 100% grass-fed bone broth, and it's so simple to add into your routine. I throw it in with hot water and it's delicious, but I can also add it to my coffee. I add it to smoothies for myself and for my son. It's delicious. What I love is that it's not filled with junk. No weird fillers, no artificial ingredients, just real nourishment that actually supports your body. And it's gentle on digestion, which for me is everything. I found that when I was waking up and just having coffee first thing, it was not the vibe, okay? And this is something that is both gentle, but also giving me a ton of protein. I add 2 scoops to like a nice big mug with hot water, and sometimes I'll add a dash of milk, but you don't need to because there is, I believe, coconut milk powder in this that is just so yummy. It makes it creamy, but it feels like it's one of those small upgrades that really adds up. My younger self would have benefited from something like this so much in my mornings. If you want to try it, head to paleovalley.com/almost30 or use code A30 at checkout for 15% off your first purchase. Again, my favorite is the chocolate, but they have other flavors that are just so delicious. Check it out, paleovalley.com/almost30 or use code A30 at checkout for 15% off.
With the heart, I wonder if people are avoidant of being in the heart because they associate the heart with heartbreak and they associate the heart with pain rather than like the truth of what the heart experiences.
So
What do you think about that?
I've tried to do the heart aligned meditation
Yeah.
with some clients and some people, and 3 things can happen, or a multitude of things,
Yeah.
but like put them in 3 categories. Right away, people are like, "Wow, I feel so connected." It's like there. Number 2, some people may say, "I don't feel anything." There's like a numbness. Or number 3, people are like, "I don't like being in there. There's a lot in there." So this is what I would say. If there's a numbness, it's sort of like retraining a muscle. The more we go back, or like nourishing, or getting your gut to work well again, like the microbiome, the more you do it, you start to re-enliven these. There's like nerves, and there's, again, 40,000 neurons. There's connections in there, and you can start to bring back. A lot of us had childhoods where maybe there was such big things that happen that we shut down our feelings. We shut down our heart connection, or a big heartbreak, or we never got over grief, or something happened. And the third is like, ooh, there's a lot in there. Again, there's practices we don't want to overforce or go too hard or push ourselves through. But when you get really coherent, it's been my experience, you can start to go into feelings and feel them through as much as you can handle in a session. And then it is like, again, so much of my work is, nutrition, and then the spirituality and the hard work. It's almost like you're digesting old energies, which can be stored and trapped, again, in these neurons in your body. And then you're starting to release them for the first time, but doing it gently and doing it at your own pace.
What would you say the connection between the heart coherence was in you finding John?
Oh my gosh. I was just thinking we're so connected, Krista. I have to take a step back and say there was this period in my life, and I've known you for a while, where my mom passed away. And a few months later, I moved out and I broke up with my ex. And they are related because we got this cancer diagnosis on Valentine's Day, and she passed by the end of March. And it was like every completely out of control feeling was thrown up for me. Anger, fear, this shouldn't happen. My mom always ate organic food, like everything you can think. I know how to,
she's a good person.
I know how to heal this. Like I worked with so many people with cancer, like all this stuff. But, and Dr. David Hawkins, who I also love in the book, Letting Go, he says one big, and I'm paraphrasing here because I would use like heart opening experience, or one big experience like that can change your whole life. And I had to go in so deeply to the pain of the grief that something happened where some frozen parts of my heart, and again, the tactical, the thinking, the sort of, again, and he's a great person, my ex, but like, hey, we know the same people. We're both kind of in the same crowds, and, like we look good together, like whatever I was thinking, it was just sort of like, hold on here. Like when my mom passed away, it was just like, well, anything can happen in life. And this is not the closeness that I want. So if that didn't happen, it's like, everything happened. So then I moved out, and then
the tragedy helps you see things clearly.
Any tragedy, right? Or any sort of big change. Yeah. Like let's say you lose your dog, or you have to move. I mean, just so many things. I mean, life is so up and down. But if you actually allow yourself to feel and go into it, there's power in that. And then realizing, God doesn't give us anything that we can't handle, as hard as it feels. And that was so crazy, losing my mom like that. So anyways, so then I'm like sitting there, and I spoke to Brother Satchidananda. And I know I've told you this story before, but he's a monk at the Self-Realization Fellowship. And he said to me such poignant advice. He said, just don't do anything but go into you. And he gave me a prescription that was very specific. He said 10 months. At the time, I was like, 10 months. So for 10 months, and I think this was the genesis of this book even, Krista, I read the Bhagavad Gita. I read the Bible over again. I was meditating. I was cooking food, but I wasn't very outward. And then in that 10 months, I did date someone briefly. And I was just like, oh gosh, it's like this same old like pattern of sort of like okayness. And then I just said no, like I'm not going to do this. It was just such a clear no. And then there was just almost like this quiet feeling in my heart. I would describe it like a full. I mean, this word is really important, but trust, like trusting God, like trusting the way, like it's when you can't see in the dark, right? That's what the dark heart is, by the way. It's not evil. It's just that we don't see. But then as your heart power starts to come forward, you're like, hey, I'm just going to go forward as aligned as I can. So when I broke up with that guy because of the trust, 10 days later, I met John at a dinner party. Someone who came on my podcast, who I didn't even know, invited me to this random podcast dinner. Like I knew him from a podcast, and this other guy I knew from a podcast. But I was like, I don't know. Like
you never go to anything, so that's very rare.
I say no to almost everything.
Yeah, everything. Yeah.
So
you're also gone in Hawaii.
Yeah. But of course, this is before we buy it. But then, so this is again, the clarity. that comes, which is out of time and space. Like the mind is like, this is how long it's going to
Yes.
take. And this is how long we're supposed to date before we talk about getting married.
Yeah.
And by this time, we're supposed to be engaged, like gone. So I met John, and he said within 15 minutes, he knew I was going to be his wife. But then, which sounds crazy because here's a guy who went in for a vasectomy, who said he would never get married. The next, I was like, oh, I got to go. I got a beach walk I do every morning. And he's like, well, I'll come. I'm like, it's 2 a.m. Are you sure you're going to come? It's in 5 hours. He's like, yeah, I'll come. So he comes, we talk for 2 hours. And then I was like, again, out of my head. And I literally said, I don't ask guys out, but I have this event with Levi's tonight. I was doing speaking for Levi's at the time. Do you want to come? Instead of, let me play this little game. He should ask me. Let me not text back right away. It was just like, here, present. Hey, I want to hang out with this guy. Do you want to come? Right? So much thinking. So then we hung out, didn't see each other on Sunday. Monday went out to dinner, and he told me he loved me. And I didn't say I loved you back, but I was like, oh, that's nice. Because I wasn't, again, just not quite there. But long story short, 6 weeks later, we went to this amazing journey. We went to the spiritual sites, and we went to Petra, and we got engaged. And then we were married and then the plane ride, and then the plane ride home, he's like, that's it. He's like, I don't want to be not married to you. So from the plane, we went to the courthouse, and it was closed. It was like blocked out, but they were like 4 days later, you can get married in Compton. So we got married 4 days later in Compton.
Where was the wedding? You guys had a wedding though.
So then we had a little wedding in our backyard.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
And then, then the second house we looked at, I mean, is this, I don't want it to sound like fluffy because, but this is really what happened. And people are like, oh, this is so fast. But when you're in your heart, it's really clear. And then we moved, and then we, got our farm, and had Moses. And, I say this because I am someone, Krista, that was so in my head and so anxious. And it's not like everything works out perfectly. But what I do say is when something, what it is? It's like the tacticalness of like, oh, I need to do this, or I have to work this hard. The more we come into our heart, I really believe we all are endowed with this incredible intelligence. And I keep using this word power, which isn't like this political power. It's just this magnetism, this energy, this knowing that I think we don't utilize. But the more that comes up, I think we attract the soulmates. I think we attract the work and the things that we want more easily. And it doesn't mean it falls from the sky. There's work and there's things you have to do. But I think that, just like your body becomes so much more energy efficient, I think that happens more in life.
Yeah, I think with the mind versus the heart in relationships, it's like you could have your mind manifest something, like we're all powerful creators, but what you're truly going to want for the long haul will be something that you magnetize from the heart. And that means it's going to look like something different than what your mind had.
You have to see through all the ideas, right? So it's sort of like, if you read the Tao, and it's so top of mind for me because I read it again, we're so full of I should look like this. This is what success looks like. This is where I should be in my career. This is what my partner should look like. Should like all these ideas. And when you empty that, there's this clarity that just, there's a statement, and I'm paraphrasing, where the action just arises by itself. It's like an athlete that's just sort of moving and not thinking. So it's like, yes, do you want to come to this speaking event with me? And so John is completely different than me. He's completely tattooed. He has a gold grill in his teeth. He's a huge meat eater. I'm plant-based. He does CrossFit. He does all the things that on the outside are not compatible. But we always laugh about this. And we've done podcasts together too, where, it's like people think if you both ski or you do things like that. I mean, that can be nice. But there's also this heart connection. It's the same thing with friends. You can't just put it on paper why you are so connected to some people.
Totally. I was talking about that this weekend. I was meeting new people, and I was like, I just know within the first seconds when I look in someone's eyes, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a yes or a no. And it's not like there's a problem with anybody, but it's very obvious to me what's something I want to pursue from a frequency level and what's something I don't. And I think at this point, it's not like I'm like mean to anybody, like I'm enjoying everything. But I think for deepening of relationships, there has to be either that heart coherence or just a connection where you see in the eyes, like, oh, this is like a yes for me from a soul level and being in relationship. But I think where I think about the heart too, it's been interesting in my path of leaving my relationship and now opening my heart, a new relationship is like, I kind of, and this is, I guess, a vulnerable share that I'm curious your thoughts on. Opening my heart has felt, I can feel it opening and then I'll get in the head.
Yeah.
It's like open, then get in the head.
Of course.
And it's almost like I'm in this process of the opening and then in the head. And I'm having to be really hyper vigilant of my thoughts and the thoughts that I have that are making me run or making me fearful in something I don't need to be fearful in.
Wait, so you're saying you're in a new relationship
Yes.
now.
Mhm.
So I feel, first of all, the heart journey is not linear. Like
Yeah.
when I was talking about
True.
the stages, we can feel really steady, but then a trigger comes up and then we're back in that dark heart moment, that incoherence, that fear. And we're like, ooh, right? So we're in and out,
Yes.
we're in and
Yeah.
out. And so with John and I, the love
Mhm.
was so strong.
Mhm.
But what was interesting is, I always say this, our first year of marriage was the hardest year. Now we're going on 7.
Why was that, do you think?
I think because in other relationships, I wasn't so open and vulnerable.
Very true.
And I also think I picked safer people because I didn't want to get hurt. So then this trauma came up, Krista. I was like, what? I never, I thought I had abandonment issues or whatever it is. And it came up. And that is the power of like a truly conscious relationship, is it's like, molding each other into a more clear heart. And you can really help each other grow. Because if you're single, you can kind of live out your own patterns and no one's really challenging it. And you're not challenging yourself. And of course, I don't want to, for some people, the single path is the path, right? All these amazing monks, grow in their way. But I'm saying for me and for many of us, the partnership path forces us to look and grow. And we have to do the individual work. And then you come together. And it's like, oh my gosh, the growth that I've experienced in my marriage with John is more than like any other period in my life. Of course, the freedom when I was backpacking and this, amazingness. But for me, spiritually as a human, has been in our relationship. And, I think you just have to stay present to what is and aware, and things come. And then you notice that you're retracting, or you notice you're up in your head, and it's okay. And you don't judge, but then you journal, you do your practices. For me, it's the heart aligned meditation and other things. And then you can digest, you can sort of self-soothe, and then come back to the heart and respond from the heart more and more.
What would a response to a fight or a trigger look like in a relationship versus not in the heart?
So I think when ego is battling ego, then it's I know for myself, then you're saying the same things over and over, because one of my triggers is not being heard and seen
Interesting.
as a child, right? So then I'm like, let me say it again.
Yeah.
Let me try to say it again.
You're like, you better listen here. He's like, I heard you completely.
So it's, now when I'm in my heart, it's more about, what is this person really saying to me versus the self-focus of letting me get across my point. And it's so different, Krista. And when I hear what the need is, and I would say, to be open, the biggest thing that comes up right now in our relationship is I give so much time and energy to the kids. And John's like, I need more of this. Like, I need more of this. And I'm like, I hear you, but we're still all together. Yeah. And he's like, you're not changing. So it's like, he really needs this. And it's really hard for me because I am such a hands-on mom, but then there's stuff for me to look at too. Like, it's okay to have a little more separation with the kids, but it's like really listening to the other person. And the heart, again, the devoted heart is more about, connection and what does this person need? Like, what can I give? Versus me. Like, are they hearing me? Are they understanding me? Are they validating me? Which is, when you think back to that propelled heart energy, what's really driving us? Like, why do we need to have so many followers? Like, what is it about all the achievements? Like, for people we don't even know, like a lot of strangers, like, what's behind that? This like need to be seenness that's so widespread in society, right?
I don't know if it's because parents weren't paying attention. Like, our generation of parents weren't paying attention or weren't attentive or weren't thoughtful, but there is a huge need to be seen
Yes.
that
And,
exists.
it's really interesting because the heart keeps opening and opening. And I've been, I look back on my life, a lot of propelled heart energy from straight A student to,
It's a lot of our audience.
wanted to be not enough, like author, the New York Times bestseller, then 3 times on the list. And how many times? Like it's just over. It could be anything, in any field, wherever you are. And I can honestly say, especially this summer, a lot of the summer has just been like tending to our trees. We grow cacao and we have honey. And I've never so happy as just weeding and pulling the cacao and just like really ordinary moments of in the dirt. And it's like, what is all this stuff that we're always like layers on top and always wanting to show? And there's just so much energy in it. And now, really my definition of success has so much to do with groundedness, authenticity, inner peace. Because we can hear all this stuff like, oh, money doesn't make you happy and all this stuff. But how much of us really how much do we really explore? Like, well, what really does make me feel fulfilled? And in my day, and I think the heart is these little moments. Like I'll be watching a bird with one of my kids for a few minutes and it's like, I know it sounds kind of funny, but
it's so real.
Watching the bird or, just playing in the sandbox like we were last night, like these become incredible moments, these ordinary moments instead of, hey, look, how many people sign up for my course today or whatever it is. And there's greatness in that too, but we don't want to be reliant on our worth for all these things in the world telling us what success is.
I think
like
about that
moments.
too for kids from a sensory somatic experience of like playing on video games versus like looking at nature, at birds and trees, and how just that sensory experience is completely different. But I've been curious about this. So I was in London last week for tour, and one of the questions that someone asked was, a lot of women on their path, like you are now in the trees, you're in nature, you're looking at birds, but you were hustling for a really long time. And I hustled for a really long time. And I'm not looking at birds yet, but I'm getting close. I stopped to say hi to every squirrel on my walk. But like, how do you feel like you could be doing this right now if you didn't hustle then?
Oh, wow.
Because so many women in our audience are like, okay, but you still hustled to get where you were and now you're chilling. And I don't know.
Well, hold on. So I don't want to say I'm chilling, right? I'm still
that's true.
creating, but it's very different.
Okay, that's great. Then expand.
Okay, but hustling to me feels like answering emails at 10 at night and like doing, where now it's like I meditate in the morning. Like today I had to drop both my kids off at camp. I come back, I get settled. I knew I was coming here. I'm going to do a walk. I get really great ideas when I'm walking. So I write notes in my phone. It's very different than when I used to work, which is like get up early, like get on the computer, answer the emails. Like what else can I be doing? It's a very different way of living. So for me, it was like I had to maybe go through that to, sometimes you go through a bad relationship to know what you really want. But listen, there's people that have virtually or very little trauma in their childhoods. There's people that get married when they're 24 years old and they have a couple of kids and maybe they don't have that path. Maybe they're on this sort of more peaceful path and it just gets deeper and deeper. I don't think we can say the same path for anyone's journey, just like the right diet isn't correct for everyone. I think we're such unique beings, depending what we believe, our past lives, our childhoods. I think we get what we need in this lifetime to keep growing back towards God, which I think is the purpose of why we're here, growing back to the heart. So, I don't think everybody needed to go backpacking for 3 years like I did, but I sure know that part of my journey was a hugely instrumental part,
What would you, so I guess this is probably a question I should have asked earlier, but I wanted to ask you and was asking before, when we're talking about the heart, what are we talking about?
So the heart is physical
and
it's energetic, right? So we all have a physical heart right here. We know it's a muscle, it's pumping blood, but it also is, which again, many of us don't realize, and I didn't realize, it's also a type of a brain. So there's a physicality to the heart and there's a physicality to what it's doing in our body. And we can work with the heart on a physical level to create more health, more hormonal balance, increase our immunity. There's a lot of research studies in the book, but not too dense. And also our digestion, many things. But the spiritual heart, Krista, the energetic heart, however we like to think of it. Can I see the book from it? I want to show you something. It's something that is not visible with the physical eyes.
Yeah.
Right. So this picture here, the heart's electromagnetic field.
What is it, 3 feet?
So 6 to 10 feet actually in this
Interesting.
research study from Heart Math. So we don't see everything with our eyes, right? We don't see, the cell phone towers and the radio waves and everything.
True.
But there is an energy. And so our brain gives off a frequency and our heart's frequency is 100 times stronger. So it's what you were saying when you walk into a room or your friend could sense something was off with you. The more we become coherent and clear.
So true.
And the scientist, Dr. Roland McCready, who we did the research study with, used this funny analogy. It's like almost like Jason Bourne abilities. Jason Bourne, those movies, which I didn't see. But he's like, when you walk into a room.
Don't ask me any reference to anything. Like,
Oh,
people are
yeah,
like,
I don't watch that
and
stuff.
I'm like,
My husband might know. But he's like, you
You're like,
could
do you know this
sense-
person? I'm like, nope, I don't. Not a single person that anyone's ever asked me, do I know? I'm like, no.
But it's like, you sense more. It's this
Yes.
sixth sense, higher intelligence, right? It's more intuitive. So your intuition, your emotional intelligence gets higher. So that's not just this physicality. There's frequencies. And again, back to this, and I was raised Catholic. And next to my bed, there was this picture, which is on my altar now, still the same picture. I've reframed it. This Sacred Heart of Jesus Christ. It's not coming out of his forehead.
Oh, interesting.
It's coming out of his heart. And then there's this, my younger son's middle name is Hanuman, which is, this this whole story in the Ramayana where he basically saves Sita, Rama's wife, and they give him this emerald ring and this reward, and he bites it in front of the court. They're like, don't you want this big reward? And he takes his monkey fingers and he opens up his chest and he unveils in his heart, it says, Ram, 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 like the word for God. But he's not opening up his brain, he's opening up his heart. So spiritual traditions all around the world have talked about this energy, which, again, there's science in the book, but I think like anything, there's only so much we can measure with science, which is created by still the limited human mind. There's a lot we don't understand about the heart, but what we can see in science is, wow, DHA went up 100% doing these practices. Cortisol went down 23%. There's a measurable electrical field. In our research study, we saw a 29% increase in coherence. And there's just things we measure, but I think there's so much more to that.
How does it connect to intuition? There's some information here on intuition, because I think a lot of our audience, they want to be more connected to their intuition. I think there's the joy and the pleasure of having intuitive hits and having an intuitive life. And then there's also the part of us that's like wanting to use our intuition to download a $50 million business idea. But either way, like, what would you say is the relationship between the heart and intuition?
I think the more coherent we become, that's where your true intuition comes from. The headiness and the thoughts are blocking the best ideas. I think, if I was to, in my head, like, maybe I need to marry a yogi or somebody who's plant-based, that's blocking this natural intuitive, like, I just feel this for this person, right? So it's interesting how, when I've interviewed entrepreneurs or, people that have these great ideas, it's always, I'm in the shower and I'm not thinking and this idea comes, or I'm skiing
So true.
and something happens. Why? Because you're dropped down into this present moment. You're embodied, you're here in your body. So the power of the work, and again, this is how you can become so much more efficient in your day. What I do is the 8-minute heart aligned meditation, and a work day like today, I just say to myself, when I'm calm and clear like that, what is the most efficient thing or things I need to do right now? And then it's very specific, Krista. It'll say, text these 3 people, reach out to this person, work on this. It's coming from this really clear place, not here. So when I'm really heart coherent, again, it goes up and up the more you do these practices, you can just start to move through, make the biggest impact instead of just burning all this energy and going back and often have to circle around and like, I didn't really have to do that. Or why did I overthink this? Why did I write my caption 5 times?
Yeah. How is I want people to know too, like, how much you have going on and how this has helped you sort of organize your day and be more productive.
So I am full-time mom to my kids. And so Emerson is 9, Mosey they just turned 9 and 5. And I drive them to school or camp. I pick them up, I'm with them. And then I also am running Saluna, our wellness brand. And we have, we're just doing this whole rebrand I was telling you about with shoots. We're shooting in Hawaii. We're doing just so much content. There's articles. We have digestion products. There's courses. Just a lot. We're doing this rebrand right now with all the packaging. And then I have my Feel Good podcast, which, is, as you know, lots of interviews.
Yeah.
And then I do a monthly show where I talk about our tips for the cornerstones: food, body, emotional well-being, spiritual growth. So there's a lot. And to be fair, I also have full-time help. So Miss Elena's with us all day, who you've met. And she is like my right-hand person. She cleans and she does our cooking. She picks up the dry cleaning. She helps. So I don't want it to sound like, I don't have, I always say I can have 2 jobs, but not 3. So I have the kids first and the family and the hubby who needs a lot of attention too, and the work. And then I also write books. I wrote 2 books published 2 books last year. So with that book, it was funny. My first book, I was living in New York and I would stay up really late and write. And this book, I was up at 3:30 every morning writing before the kids were up. So I get a lot of energy just from my lifestyle, the meditations and eating really cleanly. But to do so much, there is a very, I don't have time to mess around. And it's, if I really want to spend time with someone, I'll spend time with them. And, usually they'll come with me on a walk because I walk every day. You've been on walks with me, Krista.
That's the best way to hang.
Yeah, I really enjoy
if we're hanging
that.
Out, we're walking.
I really enjoy
the
that.
Nature, movement, processing, connection, multitasking. What's better?
For me, I spend a lot of time with my kids, so I don't get a lot out of watching screens or movies. I also feel overstimulated by the noise and the sound. So, so I flow.
Yeah, you just flow through your day. What's one study that really blew your mind from the book?
Besides our own study?
Yes.
So that blew my mind because I was really interested in doing a study. I think the hormone one blew me away.
Yeah.
So that I talk about in the Propelled Heart chapter, because we hear so much about hormones now. Everybody's talking about hormones. Everybody's talking about perimenopause and menopause and PCOS.
Yeah.
And there's just so much conversation, and there's a lot of lifestyle and recommendations that I'm all for. I'm all for food and weightlifting, all the things that people talk about, cold plunges and things like that. But nobody's talking about this heart work. And I'm like, wait, this could really help people. And again, I hadn't done my blood work in a while, so I couldn't say before and after I was really doing this heart work. But I said my DHEA, like my hormones were, really great. My cortisol was really low. And I do have a lot that I'm managing in a day. We know there's good stress and bad stress, but there's, even today I was, laughing, like, we get up before 6 and I leave for camp at 8. Those 2 hours are like bananas. Getting breakfast, getting my kids dressed. I'm playing chess. I'm painting with my younger son. Like, they beat each other up sometimes. They're hugging, just cooking, like running around. It's just a lot. But I remember I was sitting at the doing a dish, and they're just kind of like getting elevated. And I just do my heart coherence for 10 seconds, like some of these practices. And then I feel really good when I'm a really centered mom. It doesn't feel good if I'm frazzled. I know every busy mom out there listening to this is like, something to feel guilty about. We're all trying our best, and I've gotten frazzled. But the gift of this as well, and we also wrote a children's book last year, my husband and I, called Chilla Gorilla and Lanky Lemur, Journey to the Heart, bringing families together. As I become more coherent, my kids automatically are calmer. I think it's circles upon circles. I think it starts at home and who you are at home, and then it goes out into the workplace, and then who you are when you're in line at Starbucks, or who you are to the person you're checking out with, at Target, or who you are on the highway if you let someone into the lane, right? It just starts to reverberate. Everything affects everything else. Your heart affects your whole life.
I think the more I focus on heart coherence, I feel like I don't interact with anyone that's not incredibly pleasant or kind or amazing. Like, I can't remember. I was in London last week, and my friend had this interaction with someone that was just like kind of drama, like volatile. And I was sitting there, and it was no shade to her because we're both in the same vibe. But I was like, wow, I haven't interacted with anyone that wasn't incredibly pleasant.
But you know what I'll say to that, Krista? It's true, because on one hand, you start to magnetize, like sort of like goes to like. But I will say that my judgment has gone way down, and my compassion.
For
so
sure.
then there's a part in the book, the clear heart and the devoted heart, where love really becomes more nonspecific. So I used to be more like, oh, I only want to hang out with these people. I only like this. And like these people over there, this kind of person. And now I really enjoy contrast. If someone is really egoic or up in their heads, with the heart, you can still find a way to connect.
True.
And it's actually really freeing to not be like, oh, I can only be with this. And sure, I don't have a lot of free time. So you still are discerning and you still know who your best friends are. But there's also a real freedom in being like, wow, I used to really be bothered by this person. I used to be so judgy. And now I just see the person underneath more.
You're just like it is.
Yeah.
What was one thing from the Tao that you're learning right now that you really love?
So it's like you read something over and over again. It goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And I just really resonate with the part where, the verse that's about, doing nothing and yet nothing gets undone. So doing is the propelled heart. I have to do more. I have to force my way. I'm trying to find love. So I better be out every night even when I'm tired. Just this doing. I have to do all these things. I have to keep working at 11 at night. But when you're really just connected to that, whatever you want to talk about, higher heart power, frequency, the true self, things are happening and you're using your intuition, but it just feels like not so much doing. It's just like unfolding. Decisions are being made. You're just kind of present.
Yeah, I feel like it's such a more joyful experience of living and things have happened easier, but then also I want less. I want less. Like I'm just like, oh, this is really amazing. This is great. Everything feels added bonus.
Yeah, like this summer, we were mostly in Hawaii, like I said, and I'm really offline. I'll batch the work and the podcast. And then when we're there, I'm really present. But yeah, when I'm there, I'll have really good ideas. And like if I'll, if I want to do a video on heart coherence or I'll write something. And then, all these opportunities were coming up and retreats and ideas. I'm like, wow, you don't always have to be forcing for things to come to you.
What's one practice we can leave our audience with today for supporting them and being more in the heart?
So I would really love for everyone to do the Heart Aligned meditation. We have free tracks with coherence music on the website, which is mysaluna.com. But really quick, even here, I would say if you focus on your heart, we can just do it really quickly, like just drop down and don't close your eyes if you're driving. But if you just really tune in, and it starts to feel, may feel new or foreign, but you just focus on your heart. And then you start to take some deep breaths. And the coherence breath pattern, you don't have to count if you don't want to right now, but 5 in, 5 out. So inhaling for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then exhaling for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then just doing that a few cycles. And then you can just breathe in and out without counting. That's 0.1 hertz, which in technical terms is the coherence breath. So it's very simple. But again, it's called heart-focused breathing. And it's something that, Heart Math has talked about and all this research on heart coherence. The combination of focusing on your heart and doing that heart-focused breathing starts to rewire your nervous system. And then you can come back. Like I'll do it even, like I said, I'm doing the dishes and I'll turn to the boys and I'll be able to respond. You can come back to that email or come back to if you're having a little argument with your partner or a thought came up or you're feeling whatever. And it builds. So I want to emphasize that too. What's called your coherence capacity, your baseline. There's a baseline for many other metrics, but your heart coherence can go up and up. And then it goes, maybe you have a dark heart moment, but over time you can start to come up more into those devoted and clear heart phases and spend more time there.
Do you feel like you're in clear heart?
I have moments. We think we all have moments of clear heart, right? It's like you're taking a shower and you're sort of doing the dishes and you're sort of staring off in space. But I think because of the work and the coherence practices, I spend a lot of time in the devoted and clear heart, but I still have propelled heart moments and dark heart moments too. Not going to, you're not just there.
Yeah.
You're not like enlightened saints,
I
right?
know.
It's like this. And then it's like when you look at a graph and it trends up, but there's still retraction.
And the goal is trending up.
Yeah. I mean, in this line of work, the opening your heart, when you realize that who we are, I think, is the core of our heart. Who we are is authentic and kind and loving and peaceful and compassionate. And these are heart-based emotions. They're not heady emotions. So if we do want to live loving, fulfilling lives, which I think most of the audience wants to live, that's why we're listening, then I think the answers are in your heart.
I'm excited for people to get it. The Hidden Power of the 5 Hearts. Tell us where they can find you and where they can get the book.
So the book is available now wherever books are sold. I also read the audio version.
Oh, you did? Isn't that fun?
Yes.
My favorite thing.
It's like, 8 books later, I do love it. I think it's fun. It's, it's a little harder as a mom to block out all those times.
I can imagine.
But so I had to do it over more days, but I do love it. And then our website is mysaluna.com.
We'll see the new branding.
And the new branding in a few months. And also the Feel Good podcast.
Which I've been on.
Yes,
she's
Krista
been on our
has
show
come.
before. So we'll link those episodes in here. I love you so much. I'm so grateful we got to spend time.
Love you too, Krista. Thank you so much. We've been on our journey for some years now.
I know. We've been doing our thing. It's so weird. Like, I think I told you this years ago, but I remember in my blog I shared your green smoothie.
Wow.
In like 2014.
Wow.
Something 2015. I was like, this smoothie's amazing. I don't even think I made it once. I just was like, it inspired me.
Oh, amazing.
I was manifesting you. So I love the book. I'm grateful for you guys to get it. I love you so much.
Thank you so much.
I will see you guys later. Bye. Thank you so much, Kim. Again, the book you can get now on Amazon. The book is called The Hidden Power of the 5 Hearts. The Hidden Power of the 5 Hearts. And the book that you were referencing is called
Chilla Gorilla and Lanky Lemur Journey to the Heart. Highly recommend for your kiddos. It's so cute.
Writing a kid's book would be such a dream.
And the illustrations are amazing. And it's like just such a fun. It's fun.
I love that. Yeah. Thank you, Kim. We love you very much. Kim has another brand called Saluna that you can check out as well in her podcast that we've been on. And she's also been on our show. There's 800 plus episodes you can dig into now. What I would do is just search a keyword and then almost 30. So you can search aliens, almost 30, spirituality, almost 30, meditation, almost 30, mindfulness, nervous system, whatever word you're really thinking of. I'm sure we have an episode for it. And that can help you sort of find the specific episode for you. Almost 30 Podcast is our Instagram. We do clips. We have really great sliders and carousels that are educational and funny. And then TikTok has a bunch of clips from the show. So you can kind of get that quick hit of inspiration and insight wherever you go.
Yeah. And we have our clip show, Morning Microdose, which I think you'll love. And it's a great way to start your day, 5 to 15 minutes of the best of almost 30. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for listening. We have new episodes every single week on Tuesday and Thursday. So we'll see you on the next one.
I love you guys. I'll see you soon. Bye.